people like Reverend Dr. Peter Morales, President of the Unitarian Universalist Association, people like Kathleen K. Montgomery, the former Executive Vice President of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Please notice how I emphasize the word vice, because she's complicit in and even involved in 3 decades worth of cover-up of clergy abuse. You know, they hired Stikeman Elliott barristers and solicitors, litigation lawyer, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, to have me served with an arrogant and aggressive cease and desist demand letter that, amongst other highly questionable accusations, falsely accused me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel, which carries a 2-year jail sentence if you're convicted of it, for allegedly making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. Well, unfortunately for Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, my allegations about Unitarian Universalist ministers committing such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, to say nothing of Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers committing such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, are simply not unfounded. In fact, it was unfounded for Maitre Coulombe to assert that my allegations are unfounded, because they're actually very well founded, in fact. But here's the interesting thing. Even if I was making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the Unitarian Universalist Association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, this would not actually constitute blasphemous libel. It might possibly constitute ordinary libel, which the Unitarian Universalist Association and the ministers in question could potentially sue me for, but it would not constitute the criminal act of blasphemous libel. Because the criminal act of blasphemous libel, the term blasphemous libel, is simply a fancy legal term for blasphemy and blaspheming. So what the Unitarian Universalist Association, through the mouthpiece of its Stikeman Elliott barristers and solicitors lawyer, was claiming was that I was committing blasphemy against the Unitarian Universalist religious community by posting blog posts that were critical of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by some rather despicable Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists. In fact, there was actually only one pedophile that I'd blogged about, more specifically one pedophile rapist. I hadn't actually blogged about more pedophiles than that, although there certainly are others. But I blogged about Richard Buell of First Parish Norwell, because there were publicly available newspaper reports about the fact that he was convicted of the forcible rape of preteen girls who were no older than 12 years old at the times that the rapes took place. So that makes Richard Buell of First Parish Norwell a pedophile rapist in my books, and I suspect the vast majority of Canadians and Americans would agree with me. So nothing unfounded at all about my blog post about Richard Buell. Similarly, I blogged about Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell, because he too had been convicted, and that there were newspaper reports about his conviction available. So in both cases, you know, I blogged about these cases because they were publicly available information about them, and therefore, in my view, I could not possibly be accused of ordinary libel, let alone blasphemous. A good day, how are you? Yeah, you want to come pee on my signs? It's only happened once in the whole time I've been protesting.
Yeah?
Oh, you're beautiful. You're lovely dogs. Yes, you are. Huskies, eh? Or one of them anyway.
He's a Malamute Husky mix, and she's,
right.
She's pretty husky.
Yeah, no, she's beautiful. Yeah, lovely. See, you're not too bad either. You're pretty cute. Very friendly dogs, lovely. Yeah, made my day. Other than being accused of blasphemy by Unitarians in the 21st century, that makes my day too. Which reminds me, I got to put my signs back up. But yeah, wonderful dogs, lovely.
Thanks. And
I'm glad that they're not muzzled like Kader likes to do with pit bulls. You know? Yeah, I think it's a little bit too much. Yeah, I think it actually makes the dogs more aggressive. Muzzling them, if you don't do it properly, and it can't be done properly on short notice, it basically traumatizes them. Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's like it traumatizes the dog. Yeah. You too. Yeah. So, looks like my picket signs got a little wet because they fell down. I could have protected them. I actually did bring protective material. But oh, here comes Harvey Shepherd. Harvey Shepherd, who has ignored my protest now for the full time he's been a member of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. Former Gazette religion column. Good morning. Maybe one day you should put your old journalism skills to use and interview me about this protest so you can engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning sometime, instead of ignoring it. So that's Harvey Shepherd, former Gazette religion columnist, who actually wrote some pretty good articles back in the day when I was trying to get Creation Day, an interreligious celebration of creation, off the ground in the mid-1990s, even early 1990s. And even did some pretty good articles about the religious experience that inspired Creation Day. But, you know, when the Unitarian Church of Montreal basically allowed Reverend Ray Drennan to label Creation Day as a cult and me as psychotic and so on and so forth, and I, after trying to settle the dispute within the church, finally decided that I needed to go public with it. Well, Harvey Shepherd didn't write a single thing about the anti-religious intolerance and bigotry that I encountered at the Unitarian Church of Montreal. And so I unfortunately am not very impressed with Harvey Shepherd. And to the best of my knowledge, he wasn't actually a member of the Unitarian Church of Montreal back at that time, which is sort of the 1995, 1996, maybe a little bit later in terms of, you know, going public. But he actually joined later. So knowing full well that I had encountered, you know, anti-religious intolerance and bigotry and so on at the Unitarian Church of Montreal, and had been thrown out of the church for complaining about it, he apparently decided to join the Unitarian Church of Montreal. And so basically I'm pretty sure I was already engaging in peaceful public protest against the anti-religious intolerance and bigotry, and indeed other clergy abuse, because by the time I went public in 1998, May of 1998, I was already aware of clergy sexual misconduct being very poorly handled by the Unitarian Universalist Association, because after I filed my complaint against Reverend Ray Drennan in February of 1996, and it was dismissed out of hand by the Unitarian Universalist Association, who actually had the unmitigated gall to claim that Reverend Ray Drennan's behavior, as I described it, was within the appropriate guidelines of ministerial leadership. So according to the Unitarian Universalist Association, it's within the appropriate guidelines of ministerial leadership of Unitarian Universalist ministers to slander a congregant's interreligious event as a cult, and more specifically as a manipulative and secretive religious group. Because when I challenged Reverend Ray Drennan's use of the word cult to describe Creation Day and said, "What do you mean by cult, Ray?" he came back with, "I mean a manipulative and secretive religious group." Oh, and I forgot to mention that all of this happened around the time of the Solar Temple murder-suicide fiasco. So in labeling Creation Day as a cult, right around the time of the Solar Temple murder-suicides, and actually went back a little bit earlier, Frank Green, the president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, was also not only, well, he actually never labeled Creation Day as a cult to my face. He, based on what I was told by other people, he did in fact use the cult word behind my back in conversations with other people. But what he did do to my face, when I was organizing the first the first, by the way, this is something, sort of a stream. Oh, look who's here. Long time no see, Miss Video Girl. Hope you're proud to be totally complicit in your religious communities. I'm talking to you, Anna, or whatever your name is. Talking to you. You are complicit in your religious communities, immoral, unethical, borderline criminal, and if you don't mind my saying so, batshit crazy, attempted misuse of blasphemy law and legal bullying intended to hide such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape from the Canadian and American public, to say nothing of the world public. So that is, I'm trying to remember her name. Oh gosh, she's got a somewhat unusual name. And like every other Montreal Unitarian, she is totally complicit in all of the injustices and abuses that I'm protesting against. Now we're really into stream of consciousness now. That was totally unexpected. I haven't seen her for years. She's been away for years and years and years. So this is like almost a little synchronicity. I'm talking about stream of consciousness, and this Montreal Unitarian who's involved herself in efforts to shut down my protest, walks by, someone I haven't seen in literally at least 3 or 4 years, and maybe 5 or 6 comes by right when I'm talking about stream of consciousness. It's something of a synchronicity there. In any case, I'm trying to remember her name. I'm confusing it a bit with Annabelle Lieserson, who's someone else, but it's something like that. Oh gosh. It's really, like, I know it. The minute it pops into my mind, oh yeah, why, it's just one of these brain blocks that happens. So we're gonna let that drop for now. We'll get back to what I was saying. So yes, Frank Green, when I was organizing the first Creation Day in 1994, in the fall of 1994, I was in the office of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, organizing this interreligious event, this interreligious celebration of creation. Got a nice little honk there. That was definitely the supportive honk for yours truly. Anyway, I was in the church office organizing Creation Day, which I had the permission to do from the church's minister at the time,